Okay, we are going to try to finish today Kuf Yud Gimel Alach Yud Gimel. Okay, that was the din about if you had food that was smoked, and we've been talking about different questions about that. That smoked food does not cause Bishul Akum.
Right.
So we saw last time that there were four. You don't need insight for this.
I just want to see the.
Okay. That there are four. Basically, we're going to call them four different opinions as to whether the cooktop ishun, things that are smoked, do not require Bishul Yisroel. We're going to call it four different ways of looking at it as to whether that applies to cooking with live steam also. Okay, we're not talking about steam, but we're just going to review those for what we do have to talk about. Okay, some people say anything that's cooked with heat needs to have anything prepared with heat. Ishun means that since it's cooked without heat, therefore it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. And therefore, that's what ishun means. Since ishun is smoking, it's a way of preparing it just by smoking, but there's no heat involved. And therefore, if you have cold smoke, that's ishun. But if you have hot smoke, or if you have steam, that would be also. That's what some people hold. Many hold, including us, that ishun means since it's cooked without a fire, therefore it doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. Here, the first one was that it had no heat. Right. This one that had no fire. And therefore, if the problem is that it has to have fire, then if you use hot smoke or you use steam, that's also okay. Because they are.
You say fire, so what about electricity?
An electric coil is the same thing also.
Well, like a pot, if you have it on electric...
an electric coil.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah.
Same thing. That's also considered a fire. That's a fire for Shabbos, for everything else. Those electric coils are considered. We're going to get actually back to that point in a second. But yes, electric coils are fire. Okay, Rafal said that really the criteria is whether that if you hot smoke, a hot smoke is a mix between heat and smoke, and that's why it's mutter. Only if it's a mix of heat and smoke. But if it would be steam, which is just the heat without the smoke qualities of it, it would be awesome. Okay, that was the third opinion. Fourth was that Shevet Levi said that any method of cooking that's a common, typical method of cooking is asur, and therefore steaming is asur also. Okay? He doesn't want to hear from me. He's like, there's nothing to talk about. We're going to talk more about Shevet Levi today. We said last time we're going to push it to now, and that's what we'll talk about today. So now, let's think about those four ways of looking at it and try to apply those four ways of looking at steam to a microwave. Okay? The first opinion was, if there's no heat, then there's no Bishul Akum. Okay? So then you can go both ways now on a microwave. You can say, well, on the microwave there's no heat, there's no heating media, there's nothing heating up the food, but there isn't but it does get hot. Okay, so it's like right, it's heating itself. So it's sort of it's like in between. Okay, right. So these people who said that steam was no good because there is heat involved, they could go either way on a microwave. They could either say microwave, well, there's no heat, there isn't any heating media, there's nothing to heat it up, but the food gets hot. It's not like smoking where the food stays cold. So we could see those people going both ways on a microwave. Okay? What happens if you hold that what happens if you hold steam is mutter because there's no fire involved? Then obviously you can hold that the microwave is not a problem because the microwave has no fire either. Okay? And the first one that held that the criteria...
the electric symbol is not fire here.
No,
it's not a direct...
It has nothing to do with the heat.
Right.
If the criteria is that you need to have heat, we could yesh load them whether the microwave is heat. We probably does not have heat. Probably we're not because it have heat. If you if you say that steam does not cause Bishul Akum because there's no fire involved, then the microwave obviously has no fire either. Okay. And Rafal, who said that steam is usher, but hot smoking is mutter because hot smoking is a mix, he would probably be making here also because the cooking that's being done here is not. He said it's us if there's steam mixed with smoke, that mixture together makes it mutter. But over here, there's nothing. There's no steam at all. He would probably be making, although maybe you could think he's going to be machmir also. And Shevet Levi, we're going to talk about Shevet Levi now before we get back to this. The Shevet Levi is very clear. Okay, he's like, it's partial to him that that cooking in a microwave is Bishul Akum. And he says, because, like he said, any normal way of cooking, there's two different truths about it, any normal way of cooking that makes the food cooked is Bishul Akum. The only cool is here about things that are not cooking methods, but anything that makes the food cooked, and that's a pretty common, normal way to cook, is also, I'll read you his word, in one of his places, he says, Kol shnikra lov shem bishul kadarkei, hu b'chlal gzeir de bishul akum, v'yitziu rak ishur u'malicha v'kavash eina bishul b'mitzias. It's not, the way he explains it, he says, we say kavash is kimavushal. When you brine something, you pickle something, it's like it's mavushal, but it's not really mavushal. You cook something in steam, it's cooked, the food is cooked. So he says that's awesome, yes.
So it is that microwaves really aren't used to cook?
What do you mean they're not really used to cook?
In general, they're just used to reheat.
Therefore what? What's
No, so I'm saying it's not actual cooking.
well, wait a second. If you're using it to cook it, you're saying
No, I'm saying in general, people. I mean, back then, people thought microwaves are great for cooking, but the quality of the food being to actually cook something.
Right.
They say you can make breads in microwaves, and no one makes them or things like that.
so
No one
you
bakes
so
in
you're,
microwaves.
so you're trying to say is that he said it has to be a typical way of cooking.
Right, it's
You
not-
said no one uses it for cooking.
It's just a typical way of reheating and defrosting.
And so you're arguing on a product.
No,
I hear it.
different.
No, I hear it. No, it might be because he said if it's cooking, as opposed to like pickling, it's a real cooking method, and it's a typical way of doing it. Then it's also so you're saying maybe it's not typical, even though everyone has a microwave in their house, but it's not a cooking appliance. Okay,
Right.
that's fair. Maybe you could argue. He doesn't say that.
No, I was wondering.
You eat liquids, you call liquids that has the same Bishul. People heat up liquids.
Right.
Okay, but Yisroel, he doesn't say it like that. But you could hear maybe something like that. Okay, now, one of his rayas that cooking in any method of cooking is usher. One of his rayas is he says what Ken said before. He said, doesn't everybody know that if you cook in an electric coil, that would be Bishul Akum? He says, isn't that, of course, that would be Bishul Akum? He said, so you see, that any way of cooking, even if there's no fire, it's still Bishul Akum. Okay? Now, the obvious answer to what he said is that everybody treats an electric coil not as a non-fire as we consider that it is a fire. It's like saying if you turn on an incandescent light, most people think that that's Havara on Shabbos because it's making a fire. Okay, so most people would think that coil is a plain old fire. It's in a different form than we're used to, but most of us don't hear that right now. Now, there is a diuk to the way Shevet Levi says. I don't think he brings this diuk, but the diuk is like this. The Rajba, when he explains, he's talking about these different dinim. He happens not to be talking about smoking it. He's talking about malicha, okay? But he says, but it's the same thing. It's this whole discussion of these different non-heat methods of cooking. And he says, before he proves it, he says, the svara is that there should be no bishul akum on these things. Why? Hadas machras, she'ein kiruv hadas b'malicha. There isn't kiruv hadas in this, meaning, what makes the chasnus is because there's good feelings between us because I prepared you the food. This kind of method of food is like sort of like a lower quality way of making food, and therefore there's no kiruv hadas from this kind of food. If I give you pickled food, it's not the same. I'm putting some words in his mouth, but it's not the same quality, and therefore there's no kiruv hadas from that. So the svara says there shouldn't be bishul akum on that. It's not like baked and fried and cooked food. It's like a lower level, and therefore it will be mutter. Now that
You never went to a kiddush in the table, huh?
So, of what? Of pickled herring?
Herrings and kiddush.
Okay,
You know
so
what I'm
now,
saying? That was how they did by mitzvah.
so that is to say that the Raj is saying is you have to look at the finished product. Part of the reason why a pickled food is mutter is not bishul akum is because you look at the finished product and say this finished product is not the kind of product that Chazal had in mind. So if you say that, then a finished
That's why?
because
it's not
it
really-
wouldn't make kiruv hadas by the fact that if I present you with that food, you don't feel appreciative if I give you that food.
So then do it Roy L'Shulchan. It might be Roy L'Shulchan.
So Shulchan Aruch is a variation of the same idea, which is look at the finished food and it doesn't look right.
Right.
So if so, then he's saying is it doesn't make a difference how you got the food to that point. What's the reason why malicha is mutter is not because malicha, the act of malicha is not. It's because the finished product, food that is pickled, is not the same food that Chazal had in mind. If we're looking only at the finished, at the finished product, and the pickling is a way to get to a certain type of finished product, then if I cooked it in live steam, what's the difference? It comes out just as cooked. It doesn't come out any differently cooked than it did if I cooked it that way. So if the criteria, the Raj is saying is, the finished product won't be such a good quality product, and therefore this type of cooking is mutter or usher, then that's a deal to the Shevet Levi that you should look at the finished product. The finished product is a cooked food, the canned food that you get from a company, the cooked food from steam. To you, it looks just as cooked as any other cooked food. So there's a smart to say what he said. Okay. Now, on the other hand, I'm telling you that dig. Lamai says that's a dig, like a few words in a Rashba. Everybody else, in the Rashba himself included, who talks about the Isra, Bishul Akum, of Malicha, and these kind of things, says anything without an Aish doesn't have Bishul Akum. That's how they explain the Isra. That Rashba I told you was a svara for it, but the way they describe the thing is that if it doesn't have Aish, it's not Asr. Okay? And they bring from the Gemara that it's Nishtana, Taldasai, the Aish, whatever the words were in the Gemara, it has to be changed through fire. Okay? So everyone seems to be making a point that it has to do with the way you did it. If the way you did it was fire, then it would be Asr, and for that fire it's mutter. So that all doesn't sound like the Shevet. I have to say again. So there's a diak in one Rashba like the Shevet. There really is a diak that says if we look at the finished product, if the finished product is a kind of way that would be make kiruv, then that's mutter also depending on how you prepare it. Okay, so we could Yisroel did in the Shevet. But now we've gone through our 4 ways of looking at steam and thought about how those apply to microwaves. If you're paying attention to what I said, if you're listening to what I'm saying, you're going to realize an amazing inconsistency, okay, to which I don't have any good answer. Everybody who holds that cooking with steam needs Bishul Yisroel holds that cooking with a microwave maybe does or maybe doesn't need Bishul Yisroel. Okay, if you listen to the opinions, if you hold that cooking with steam needs Bishul Yisroel, then cooking with a microwave maybe does and maybe doesn't. Some could have been machmir and we went through this first. But if you hold that cooking with steam does not need Bishul Yisroel, you're cooking with live steam does not Bishul Yisroel, there isn't a way in the world that you could hold that cooking with a microwave needs Bishul Yisroel. Everybody holds that. The svars that they say, the reasons they're thinking why cooking with live steam doesn't need Bishul Yisroel, for sure cooking with a microwave doesn't. Okay, in other words, microwave and steam are in a very similar category. They're not a regular way of cooking with fire. And if you're going to hold only one is usher, it's going to be steam. Okay, there isn't any way to hold that one is usher and it's microwave and not steam. And the that's the truth. But the inconsistency is that many hashgachos, us included, are makel to say cooking with live steam is mutter. There's no bishul akum on cooking with live steam. Yet that's one half of us says that. Yet we're all machmir to say if you cook in a microwave, it's bishul akum. And we'll talk about that in a second. But in every
Once food service,
if you go to every restaurant, it's a to-do that the microwave has to be Bishul Yisroel. But now, there are many people for whom that opinion is fine. If you hold that steam needs Bishul Yisroel, which many do, some people do, you hold like that, Shevet Levi, so he is very strong that a microwave needs it also. And that's potentially consistent. I didn't say you have to hold like that, but you at least could hold like that. But if you
consistent, he's consistent.
No, yeah, consistent. What I mean is that you don't have to. If you're machmir on steam, you don't have to be machmir on microwave. That we went through. You could possibly be machmir on one. But our way is totally inconsistent. To say that we're making on steam and we're machmir on microwaves makes no sense. Okay. However, nothing. The only answer, the best I can with that, I don't think this is a good answer, is the best thing I can come up with is that since
I think Yankee is a very good answer.
Since we have
Never sit in a Kashrus commission meeting.
I'm not telling you what I think is really the answer. That I'm not going to say on tape. But
Get off a second.
But the best I can come up with is that since in food service there's a mashgiach standing there, so why not make it Bishul Yisroel sort of like a why be makel if we could have a guy standing? That's the best. That's not good.
The question would be if the guy does do it.
When the tape goes over.
So you have to
So-
throw out the food, cash it out.
When the tape goes over. Okay. Now let's talk. 2 points within the machmir. Someone who, let's say the Shevet Levi, he's very strong that it's also that a person who says the people who say that you need Bishul Yisroel when you cook food in the microwave. Okay. Now, what we're talking about is, when this discussion has been, is this method of cooking a type that needs Bishul Yisroel, like baking and frying, or is it a type that doesn't need Bishul Yisroel, like smoking and brining and pickling, those kind of things? Okay, that was our question. But of course, after you've made that decision that you want to be machmir, that microwaves need Bishul Yisroel, it only applies to foods that are going to be oila shulchan lachem, just like everything other rules of Bishul Yisroel. You can't forget those rules. So, for example, what you usually think of a microwave for in your Bishul Yisroel is baked potatoes and corn on the cob. Corn on the cob. Baked potatoes and corn on the cob are oila shulchan lachem in their finished form. Okay, they're after you microwave them, they're oila shulchan lachem, and therefore
They're called kai.
Bishul Akum applies to corn on the cob. No.
Okay. Let me pause that for a second. Okay. In Mitzvah Hashem, we're going to talk next time whether corn needs Bishul Yisroel. Okay. Whether corn that's Mitzvah Hashem for the next time. 2 times.
corn is
That was raw.
Okay, let's.
I'm from Wisconsin.
You just said it. Imam just said it.
Okay. I'm gonna.
Okay.
I'm not it's not a side point. You said the verge.
You said
I wasn't talking about whether it needs Bishul Yisroel. I was talking about whether it's oila shulchan
You said
lachem.
it's oila shulchan lachem.
Yes.
Corn is oila shulchan lachem.
Yes. Okay. So
Is it really?
that's my opinion.
Depends where the president came from.
Okay, so if you'll make you feel better, we'll talk about potatoes. So microwave
Nice.
potato,
Nice.
microwave potato is is just as good as a regular potato. It tastes just as good as regular, and it's oil shulchan. Now, but that is to say, if you made a piece of chicken in the microwave, okay, that piece of chicken is not oil shulchan. Okay, you can't, but it doesn't come out tasting anything like what
That's if you're telling the end result. of how
no,
it is.
that's what I'm saying is that even if you say that microwaves need Bishul Yisroel, but only if the food you make is oil shulchan.
Well, if somebody can't cook,
What are you talking about?
so let's say I got a cook in the yeshiva who can't cook, right? So there won't be an interofficial akram, right? Because it's not really shulchan
I
malach. Once they come out with
We
it.
don't say that. We don't say
No,
that.
the
If it's a shame of cooking your curry, then
Time.
or if they burn the food.
Excuse me. I'll give you an example. Let's say you say that cooking with steam needs Bishul Yisroel. If you cook a piece of tuna fish in live steam, then you're saying the steaming shaboy means it still needs Bishul Yisroel. But look at the food. Steamed tuna is not oil shulchan malach. Not because the steam shaboy, just it's the method of preparation doesn't lend itself to being oil shulchan malach. Broiled tuna is very much oil shulchan malach. Steamed tuna, just not the kind of food that's oil shulchan
That's
malach.
like potato chips.
So therefore, I'm saying is that it's not that a microwave piece of chicken is not oil because the cook is a bad cook. And real cooking chicken is oil shulchan malach. You didn't do such a great job, but it's still a way of cooking that's oil shulchan malach. This way of cooking is not oil. It's like steaming a piece of fish. It's not oil shulchan malach. It comes out looking like dog food. So this also, when you cook a piece of chicken in the microwave, it doesn't come out in the same. It doesn't come out as the same. It doesn't come out as a way that then.
Not a chefza that's royal shulchan malach.
Not because I did a bad job. Not I pushed the buttons the wrong way. You don't push microwave buttons better. Just try putting a piece of chicken. It doesn't come out.
But
this
let
is
me ask-
only according to, there's some shilas about this, right? This is only according to like potato chips or with the...
This is like right.
The
We spoke about
same,
this 90 years ago.
I at least that. I'm not so
But
sure.
Rabbi-
I hear you, but...
But Rabbi, you're not telling me, if this can be on tape too, that if I made a piece of chicken and I burnt it,
No, that still needs Bishul Yisroel.
it still needs eyes that royal. I can't put it
That
in
doesn't
front
make
of a melon.
a difference.
He's trying to
This
say...
is a method of cooking.
It's a method of cooking.
For this
Cooking in
food,
the microwave
for
is a
a
separate-
potato in the microwave, that method worked. That's oil shulchan malach.
I would disagree
Cooking-
on
cook-
it.
cook-
I don't
okay,
think the
now.
potatoes is good.
Okay, now
No, you have
One-
to try microwaving.
one
Is it
product-
as good as in the oven?
The only way I make
one
As good as the oven?
one product
Yeah.
one product in this is that you might ask a question on what I just said. Okay, different question.
I
Not
was
what
going to
you-
ask, but I'll let you ask.
Thank you. Which is, in practice, microwave potatoes are never oil shulchan malach. You never went to a wedding and got served microwave potatoes. Okay, so you say, maybe they're not oil shulchan malach. You did?
I just
Oh, you're about
said
to ask it. Okay.
I said
It's not
doesn't
big enough
taste
microwave.
alike.
So I think that the answer is that the reason why that is because the advantage or the convenience of the microwave is that a potato, instead of taking 2 hours to bake, you could bake in 5 minutes. Okay, the advantage is the speed
Right.
that it does it in. So if I have, but the disadvantage is for every potato you put in, it takes longer. So if I had to cook potatoes for a whole malava mouthful full of
That's it.
people, then I have to run the microwave 500 times. I don't gain anything. As opposed to, I only gain something when I'm trying to make 1 or 2 of them. Okay, so if you have to cook for 100 people, you might as well bake them in the oven anyhow. But in theory, the finished product is just as good as it
Yes.
is. That's a oil shulchan malach. It just for convenience, no one's going to sit there in a commissary with 500 microwaves throwing potatoes into all of them. It's just easier just to stick them into the oven because it takes just as long to do it. Okay. Now one last point is that if you hold that you need to Bishul Yisroel on a microwave, is that it's very hard to control that in a food service or even in a house environment. Why? Because in the way we would usually make something Bishul Yisroel is the Yid turns on a fire, the Yid turns on pilots, there's something that the Yid does, and it lasts. Okay, he turns on the ovens in the morning, and then they make sure that they stay on.
Yes.
Or he turns on a pilot, and he makes sure they stay on, but he has a one-time thing to do, excuse me, that can make the food Bishul Yisroel. The problem with the microwave is, of course, you can't turn it on. It doesn't go on. You can't put it on in the morning and it stays on all day. So that means that every time somebody wants to use the microwave, the Yid's got to be involved, which is a control issue. It means the mashgiach now has this on his head. Every time a potato needs to be, either he has to do it or he has to watch that someone else doesn't throw it in. Okay?
Is there any sort to say that if you plug it in, it's considered like...
No, we took that quite some time ago. No, it did nothing. That's
What does it do?
So for this, I want to mention a great eitzah.
moves
Well,
in?
it's a little different here because you're not cooking with the heat in the microwave. So like
But-
plugging it in could be in essence.
No, but
No, if you started beaming microwaves, but I mean, as soon as you open the door, there's nothing left. There's no,
Like Star Trek?
okay, so now, so it's worth, for this, I'm mentioning this because I want to mention Rabbi Eisenbach's great idea, which is, he has two places that I know that what they do is like this. They want to make microwave potatoes, okay, but the mashgiach can't. It's too hard to have the mashgiach be on top of it. So what he does is every morning the places take 5 potatoes or a dozen potatoes and stick them into the oven and bake them halfway done, 3/4 of the way done. So the food is now it's edible. It's passably edible, and it was made in the Bishul Yisroel oven. So that food is now Bishul Yisroel. Now, when the customer walks in and needs his potato, they put the last 2-3 minutes in the microwave, so that the guy is finishing off the cooking, but the food is already Bishul Yisroel. So it's a great answer.
I think that's Rabbi Katz's the 3/4 cookie.
Is Rabbi Katz's idea? Okay, well,
I want this video to go to him.
it says over here Rabbi
I want him to
Eisenbach.
hear about microwave.
It says Rabbi Eisenbach. It says Rabbi Eisenbach's idea. But anyhow, so we'll change it. But the idea is, this way you cooked it part way and made it Bishul Yisrael, and then they have the freedom to do it however they want to. The mashgiach doesn't have to be running around. He has to make sure they always have a supply of half-baked potatoes that he could use all the time. So I think it's a very good idea. And
It's the same idea in the oven.
in the oven for what?
Same thing.
To bake food?
Yeah, if you 3/4, just put it in the oven.
But you could do it.
I'm saying, so that it's not just for the microwave. It's
Right, no, but in the microwave, it's the kind of thing where the people in the store wanna be able to cook it when the customer asks for it.
No, I'm saying that's a one solution for everything.
I guess so. If someone wants to cook that, yeah. Okay. Now, a lot of what we just talked about applies exactly to another kind of cooking also, which I'm going to mention, it's called induction cooking. Okay. Induction cooking is a way of cooking. It's even more modern than
I have a
microwaves.
big problem with that.
It's even more modern than microwaves, which is what induction cooktop does is like this. You put a special kind of pot on top of the surface, okay, and I'm going to use the word coil, but it's not really a coil. The thing that's underneath it, the thing that's in the place of the coil, is on, and that thing is cold. You could touch it. It always stays cold, 24 hours a day. When you put the pot onto it, electricity passes from that, so to speak, coil into the pot, and turns the pot hot, heats up the pot so that the food inside gets hot. But even while
Or an oven or what?
it's a stovetop, no, it's a cooktop.
Or
It can't be an oven. Wait,
They were
no, no,
cooking-
wait a second.
Wait a second. Okay.
Wait, let me just finish.
Yeah, it's
The bottom, the so to speak coil never gets hot. Even while it's cooking, it doesn't get hot. It's just
How does it cook? What's the
it passes electricity into the pot
It's a special pot.
in a way that causes the pot to, instead of get to electrocute you, instead it makes it become hot. So it heats the pot without itself being hot. It sends its electricity. I don't know the
Basically, what
technology.
it amounts to is it activates the molecules in the metal to get them to...
It runs the electricity through the pot.
Right.
Into the pot. So you have
Hot coil is hot.
So you have
There's no coil.
There's no.
It's
You know, it's
There's
a,
something in the pot that gets
no,
hot.
no. Regular metal. It's a regular pot. You can't use every type of metal. Certain types of metal. You don't have to buy a pot that has something built into it. You have to buy a pot made out of the right kind of material. A ferrous electrical conductor. It has to be the right kind. There's nothing in the pot. No, it just has to be steel and not aluminum. Whatever. It has to be the right kind of material. And then by the way the waves pass through, I don't know the technology. Whatever it is, causes.
So it's not electric. It's not,
Okay, we don't gotta get
You
into
can't
this.
it's not based on
I
electricity.
have to
It's
run.
electricity.
That's right. Can you finish? I just have to run. Take care of
Otherwise
it.
you touch it, you get electrocuted.
I want to hear the end.
Okay. So even when the pot is cooking, the bottom is not hot.
Right.
What's hot?
It'll only
The pot
is hot. The
Pot
surface.
is not hot.
The pot itself,
The side of the pot is hot.
No, no.
That's the reason.
Yes,
No, no,
I've
no,
seen
no.
it.
Anything that's hot
No.
doesn't
The
get
the whole pot is hot. The whole pot is hot. But the
breakfasts.
so to speak coil that's underneath there is not hot.
Uh-huh.
If you put your hand onto it, it's not hot.
But not
That's
to
the
be
cook.
It's like something like electrowaves. It's just heating the pot.
Yes. It's
So I
a
wonder,
way.
what do you do when I have this problem in hotels?
Hold on a second. Okay, now, so now, whoever says that cooking in a microwave is mutter, okay, including some people who think that it's also, who really think that it's mutter, okay, if you say that cooking in a microwave is mutter, that's what this is. All those same coolers here is you're cooking without a fire. You're managing to get the food hot. You're managing to get the food hot without a microwave. Now, I told you, when we talked about microwaves, we said is there are those who hold that cooking with steam is usher, and might hold that a microwave or this induction is also usher because there's no heating media, but the food is getting hot. Okay, it's different than pickling, because in pickling the food doesn't get hot either. So this is like an in-between case that there's no heating media, but the food is getting hot at the same, somehow magically is getting hot anyhow. Okay, but if you hold that cooking with live steam is mutter. It means you don't care that the food gets hot. As long as there's no fire, there's no fire here either. Okay? So therefore they would be making also, of course, Shevet HaLevi, and some of the others would be machmir. Well, Shevet HaLevi we would have to yesh lodin. Because the Shevet HaLevi says it has to be a normal way of cooking. Okay? It cooks food regular. I mean, the eggs pop around in the pot just like every other pot, but it's not normal as in...
Can you just say the pot
Wait, regular. It's not normal as in, not the way that everybody cooks in their houses. Yes.
Here's the problem. We have fancy hotels that use these things, and what they do is that they have a breakfast buffet. So the chef makes eggs on the thing. So every time you take it off, it automatically...
That's my next point.
So
That's my next point.
so I have a mashgiach standing there.
Right. So my next point is that it's just as difficult to control as the microwave is, because every time you pick up the pot, every time you put the pot, if you think it needs Bishul Yisroel, then every time you put the pot back on, you just turn the fire back on. There's nothing to turn on in the morning. So again, if you're machmir that needs Bishul Yisroel, then you got to have a guy standing there all the time, because every time he puts the pot down, he just turns it back
I'm
on.
going to do is I'm going to rely
Why isn't sink?
when it comes to this, I'm going to rely on our steamed tuna fish.
Why is it-
Okay?
why is it-
People
Well,
don't realize
that's not like turning on the fire.
What's that?
Turning that coil on is not like turning on the fire.
Because nothing happens.
Nothing happened. You could touch it. You could touch it. I do it. I touch
It's not heat.
it.
It's not cooking through
Why
heat.
can't you
So I can be
I don't have a
making.
Bishul.
Can I be make? Can I?
that coil thing?
Can I be making?
As a,
I'm going.
As the plug, and the pot is the oven. So by you putting the pot on, you're
it's
plugging
exactly.
it in.
It's like attaching an oven to the wall. Doesn't
Right.
do anything. So if you have a Jewish plumber attach your
No,
oven,
no, it's not. 'Cause you're turning on the
Right
oven. So it's like having something which has to automate, like a hot plate. As soon as you plug it in, it turns on. So that's like what this pot is. As soon as you put it down, you're plugging it in.
One second, if I had a microwave
second.
running, if I had a
One
microwave
second.
running the whole time, and I had a way to get food into the microwave, I had some kind of hatch that I dropped it in.
Yeah, okay.
And the thing was zapping waves, and I dropped it in the hatch, and the Jew turned on the microwave. That wouldn't be good.
that would be fine.
So isn't the same thing?
What this is more like, it's like setting a timer. Okay, it's more like setting a timer, which is, it will eventually go on. I do something now that in an hour from now the oven's going to go on. That most people do not consider that to be Bishul Yisroel, even though the yid's starting.
You gotta understand. You know, trying to get around to not having to understand how this thing works. You might need to understand how it works exactly. You might have a different view of it.
Okay, so you're trying to be more sophisticated. You're saying that, no, I'm not.
You gotta understand exactly how it works.
You want to say, since I got it rolling, I did as much as has to be done, so, okay. Now, there's three other things to say about this induction cooktop, which have nothing to do with our thing directly, indirectly does, which is, first of all, you can't use it for Shabbos, because, in other words, you can't put your chunk on there. Now, first of all, the reason is because you can't take the pot off the fire on Shabbos. And if you leave your soup on there today, that means it's tonight when you want to eat the soup, you can't take the pot off, because when you take the pot off, you stop the electricity. You're turning off the electricity. When you lift your pot off the fire, you're going to be stopping electricity.
You know, it's funny how it works. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
You know what magnetism is?
A little bit.
Okay. This is a sophisticated magnetism, is all it is.
Really?
Yes, really, seriously. All it is you have a mechanism under the cooking area that acts as a sophisticated magnet.
Magnets have no electricity. This has electricity.
Magnets are electricity.
Yeah, electromagnetic.
By definition, a magnet is electricity. It just doesn't plug in. It generates its own electricity. It's on 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It never turns off. It's just that just like when you plug into the wall, you get the electricity to start flowing through. A magnet, the electricity is there, but until you put something next to it to activate the properties of the magnetism, it just sits there. It doesn't do anything. Did you ever see you put a magnet under a piece of paper with the metal filings, and they do those designs? Okay, as long as you don't put that paper there, then the magnetism isn't doing anything. It's just there. It just exists.
Like
When you
field.
Right, exactly what it is. When you put that paper down with the filings, then all of a sudden there's an attraction. There's a interaction between the magnetism and the filings. When you have this cooktop, if you want to compare it to a magnet, as long as there's no paper, there's no pot on top of it, it just exists. It's just there. When you put the pot on it, what happens is that, if you, for lack of a better word, the magnetism creates the molecules in the pot to vibrate much faster, which creates heat. That's exactly what heat is. Heat is the atoms vibrating faster. So all it is a sophisticated magnet, for lack of a better term for it, understand it, that the magnet doesn't get activated until you put the pot on it.
Okay. Let me continue. We're gonna in a few weeks. He's gonna be an Irish school about it. We know. Okay. Now the second thing is
Guaranteed.
this. What?
It won't be.
Okay. The second thing that it's negated to is, now I mentioned within the Shabbos, I'll just in passing, you can't put a blech onto this. Okay, but that's you can get around that problem. There's no ways to leave your food on for Shabbos. That's a minor problem that you can't have a blech. Okay.
So you say you can't put stuff that's cooked already on top?
No, you can't do it. You could put it on. Nothing will leave it. You just can't eat it on Shabbos because you won't be able to get the food out of the pot. You can't get the pot off, and it'll be magus to scoop it out while it's on the fire.
Because you're turning off electric current.
Right.
Right, because you're going to stop the electricity from flowing. Until now, right now the oven's on, and when you take the food off, you're basically turning the oven off. That's what you're going to do. When you pull the pot off, you're going to turn the fire off.
When you open the door to the microwave, you turn off the electricity.
Right, same way. Imagine if you open a microwave on Shabbos. So if the microwave's on, okay. Now the second is, since the surface only gets hot, the surface gets hot when the surface gets hot in an indirect way. Meaning, think about it. There's a hot pot sitting on it that causes a little heat to get into the surface. Okay, it's like putting a hot pot onto a counter. Okay, that counter is not hot, but if you put a hot pot onto it, the counter will get a certain amount of heat, will leak out of the pot. Okay, or food spills onto it. So if you want to kasher the surface, you have to look at this surface to kasher sort of like kashering a counter. Okay, it's a place where, it's a little heat, so to speak, leaks out from the pots, food spills onto it, and so what's the din? The way you kasher a counter, which is, the right way to do, what you have to minimally is to do irui. The Shulchan Aruch says you're supposed to do with an even mulubenes because the davar gush, and in this case it's quite a davar gush because there's this hot pot sitting on it, so that would be the right way to kasher, sort of like a counter. But often these things are made out of glass. The top of it is made out of glass, which then you can't kasher it because it's glass. We don't kasher glass. Okay, so, but I'm saying the way of kashering it is different than a regular stovetop because the stovetop has a fire burning on, and this has no, so to speak, fire burning on. Okay, and lastly, in the same vein is, you have to think about if you can use the same top for milchiks and fleishiks. I mean, you use the same stovetop for milchiks and fleishiks, that you can. And the Mishnah Berurah explains why you're allowed to do that. Some of the Mishnah Berurah's reasons don't apply to this thing. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah's reasons have to do with the fire. Some of his reasons have to do with the fire being there that, in his words, continually kashers anything that spills off. Over here, there's no continual kashering going on because there is no fire there. There isn't anything there. So you have to think about it. I don't know the answer to that.
These are different than the other glass smooth tops that have like a
Coil underneath. Just a coil underneath it. A coil underneath it.
Radiate heat.
Right, a coil. So there, the coil that's underneath there is on, so to speak, and what the Mishnah Berurah says about it burning up glass and things like that is within reason to say that for that stovetop also, for those glass or electric stovetop. Right, that area. But for this area, there's no fires there, so we're losing out on that. So it's just what to think about, that using the same one for milchiks and fleishiks, which on a regular, people are used to using the same stovetop for both milchiks and fleishiks, you have to just think about it whether it's right for this.